Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week, 10 days. For today's video, it's going to take us to the 2nd of January, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles. They run to around a couple of weeks, so it's going to take us towards the end of the first week of January. And I've got CFSV2 at the end of the video for the next 4 weeks, which takes, of course, into the second half of January. We're going to begin, though, with what's going on in the stratosphere. So, we've been talking about this in the videos quite a bit over the past few days. The GFS extended range is sort of playing around with the idea of a sudden stratospheric warming through the first week of January over the Arctic and the North Pole, starting across Siberia and then potentially penetrating into the North Pole. Yesterday, though, the GFS sort of backed away from that in its extended range. When we're talking with this about charts and data that's kind of 300 hours away or more, so we're talking about beyond 10 days away, and that's as unreliable as any of the other data that we would look at in that time frame. So we wouldn't take seriously a precipitation forecast at 336 hours, for example, and the same is true really for the stratospheric charts. Although if it keeps showing the same idea over and over and over again, then we have got a bit of a trend there, but we do need a big health warning about this, obviously. But anyway, this is how things are looking in terms of the latest GFS run with its forecast. So we're at Meteo Seal. We're beginning today, 23rd of December, with these blue and purple colours over the top of the North Pole. Those are the very, very cold temperatures that we've got at 10 HPA in the stratosphere. So it's a bit milder around the edges of the pole. We've got these green and yellow colours with the mid-latitudes, but over the top of the pole itself, it's really quite cold. So we run through the next few days. We keep those blue and purple colours rooted over the top of the North Pole and the Arctic. So certainly no sign of any particular warming of the stratosphere within the next sort of week up to New Year's Eve. That takes us beyond New Year's Eve in towards New Year's Day, and then we start to see greens and yellows intensifying around day 10, 2nd of January, over Siberia. This is Siberia just here. And this isn't a sudden stratospheric warming at this point, but it is quite a moderate warming of the stratosphere over Siberia. Meanwhile, the blue and purple colours, the very cold temperatures at 10 HPA, continue over the Arctic and over the North Pole as well. Now, this particular GFS run intensifies that warming of the stratosphere further over Siberia and starts to move it towards Canada. And then as we get towards, as far as we go, is the 8th of January. And at this point, we are actually starting to move this warming of the stratosphere just about reaching the required threshold as a sudden stratospheric warming. We are starting to move it in towards Greenland. So, a very significant warming of the stratosphere being forecast by this 6 o'clock run of the GFS, which starts to push these blue and purple colours some way out of the North Pole and towards sort of Scandinavia and the North Atlantic. So, the latest GFS run is definitely seeing quite a significant warming, probably just about reaching required threshold of a sudden stratospheric warming over Siberia through the first week of January. But as this is chopping and changing from run to run, obviously we do need to keep a big, need to have a big health warning about this. It's a long way out. The GFS is not being overly consistent with it either. So we just need to wait and see, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it, of course, over the Christmas period. The next video that we're going to do that will look at this will actually be on Boxing Day. So it'll be interesting to see how things develop over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and we'll have another look at it on Boxing Day to see what's going on. But certainly the GFS is going for, the latest GFS, 6 o'clock run, going for quite a significant warming of the stratosphere over Siberia and moving it towards Canada and Greenland by the 8th of January. So that'll be one to keep an eye on in the days ahead. Remember, the reason we're looking at this is that when you get a sudden stratospheric warming, after around 3 to 4 weeks, it can propagate down into the troposphere. That's the boundary level of the atmosphere where weather is taking place. And in the troposphere, this bubble of warm air can set up an area of high pressure. So these stratospheric warmings can become blocking areas of high pressure over the Arctic and over the North Pole, and blocking is a route pushing cold air out of the pole and down into mid-latitudes. However, as we saw last winter, when we had a very major warming of the stratosphere around this time last year, actually around Christmas to New Year, last winter, it never really got into the troposphere. It never really translated back into that blocking signal. And so it's not a guarantee, a sudden stratospheric warming is not a guarantee that we're going to get a tropospheric response. But many of our coldest spells of weather seem to begin with sudden stratospheric warmings. Well, not all of them by any means. For example, the December to Remember in 2010 at no point had a warming of the stratosphere over the Arctic and the North Pole, and yet we still came away with the coldest December since 1890 and virtually the coldest December since 1659 in 2010, and there was no sort of warming of the stratosphere involved in that at all. But anyway, we'll be keeping a close eye on what's happening in the stratosphere in the days ahead. So sort of related to this is the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. So the black line here shows where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. This is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state of the Arctic. It's not driving anything in its own terms, it just tells us what the atmosphere is doing. So when the AO is in its positive phase, you'll have low pressure over the pole, and that will tend to keep the cold air bottled up in the North Pole and in the Arctic. Whereas when the AO goes negative, you'll tend to have high pressure, that block that I was talking about a minute ago. You tend to have blocking areas of high pressure over the Arctic. And as I say, blocking is a route to push the cold air out of the Arctic and down into mid-latitudes. Of course, where the block sits is a critical factor in determining where that cold air will be pushed out. So it's not a guarantee, a negative AO. It's not a guarantee that any one area will get cold. But again, many of our coldest spells of weather coincide with negative Arctic oscillations and northern blocking. So at the moment, the Arctic oscillation is actually around neutral. We're just here. Around neutral, neither particularly positive nor negative. In the next few days, we're going to go a bit negative with the AO. So around Christmas, we are going to get a slightly colder interlude of weather, sort of just for Christmas Day, very briefly. And that's associated with this dip in the AO. However, as we go from Christmas to New Year, the GFS ensembles are really lifting the Arctic oscillation back up into positive territory from the end of the month and into January. This is a signal for westerlies to be strengthening, really, through the mid-latitudes and particularly across the Atlantic and Northern Europe during the early part of January. So a zonal sort of signal. The NAO observed and forecast chart, the same idea. So black line shows where we've been with the NAO. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. So again, just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything in its own terms. It just tells what the atmosphere is doing. When the NAO is positive, which is the default setup really for the winter across the Atlantic, you're going to have low pressure around Iceland and high pressure around the Azores. That will strengthen the zonal westerlies across the Atlantic and into Northern Europe. Conversely, when the NAO goes negative, you'll have high pressure around Iceland and low pressure through the Azores. And a negative NAO is a signal for northerly and easterly winds. So a negative NAO is kind of like a colder winter signal, really. At the moment, we're weakly positive with the NAO. We're just there. In the next couple of days, we're going to go down towards neutral. Then the GFS ensembles are lifting the NAO up into quite strongly positive territory by the end of December and through the first week of January. So both of the indexes, the AO and the NAO, are both forecast to go into quite strongly positive territory through the first week of January. This is a signal for zonality. It's a signal for strength of westerlies and probably mild or potentially even very mild weather through the first week of January. These are the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts from the Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. This takes us into the beginning of January. So we've got the ECMWF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look at in a moment, is on the bottom. So 500 millibars is like the tropospheric level of the atmosphere where weather is taking place. Red is extrapolating to above average heights, which is high pressure. Blue to below average heights, which is low pressure. You can see, but around the new year, the ECM has this area of above average height centred over the UK and most of Western Europe as well. This is sending the jet stream northwards. The jet stream is rising north. We're on the mild side of the jet stream. We're under an area of high pressure. This is a relatively dry signal for the new year, but could also be very, very mild. We could be dragging up the air from the central part of the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere around here, sort of Azores type area. So that could see the temperatures really pushing up around the new year, but we are going into a drier phase there with high pressure in control. The GFS is very similar. So again, we've got this area of above average heights over and to the south of the country. Below average heights are up to the north. This again sends the jet stream northwards. It's a drier signal because we're close to a ridge of high pressure. Both the northern parts of the country actually could be a little bit more instead of what the ECM is showing. But overall, this is a mild, potentially very mild, or even exceptionally mild pattern, and probably relatively dry, at least for the south, going to and just beyond the new year period. These are the GFS upper air and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Looking at Runcorn today. This is another suggested location for this section of the video. If you'd like to have your local town or city featured within this part of the video, then please let us know through the comments at GazzaVids. Email us at GazzaVids@gmail.com. Or alternatively, you can ask us through our social media, Facebook and Twitter accounts. We're always happy to feature your local town or city in this part of the video. The red line is 30-year upper area temperature average for Runcorn. We're starting off close to average or maybe a little bit below for the next couple of days up to Christmas Day. Beyond that, you see the way the temperatures ensembles take off, so the upper air temperature become very mild by the new year. That's kind of like 29th, 30th, 31st of December, by which time we are into a very, very mild upper air temperature indeed. Now, through the first week of January, that's this period just here, we do see that the temperatures lower. We can't really sustain that exceptional level of mildness all that long in the middle of the winter, so the temperatures will lower to some degree. Although even then, generally staying on the milder side of average, on the milder side of the red line. There's a bit of scattering there. We've got some quite warm ensemble members continuing up here. Got some cooler ones down here. Probably a bit of a zonal sine wave in evidence as well, where we've got cooler and sort of warmer and cooler and warmer sectors alternating with one another. I think the first week of January possibly goes more unsettled, and we start to drive in low pressure again, perhaps through that first week of January. Precipitation-wise, so we have got precipitation from beginning to end, really. We've got some rain coming up tomorrow, Christmas Eve, more around Boxing Day into the 27th of December. And then beyond that, actually, you would expect this to look a little bit drier than this is showing, I would have thought, given the anticyclonic signal. I think those precipitation spikes are rather overdone and a bit over top. I've talked about this in the videos before with the new ensemble charts at West Central. I think they do make the precipitation spikes look just a little bit more over the top than they actually are. So I doubt it's going to be that unsettled, certainly through the latter part of December. It may get more unsettled though through the first week of January. Temperature anomalies from the 23rd to the 31st of December, above average. It's going to be a milder than average week coming up. Most parts of Europe are milder than average as well, particularly warm across the west of Russia. Precipitation anomalies overall on the drier than average side, especially for eastern parts of the country, nearer normal to the west. I think this is going to be a drier period going up to the new year, definitely, but not completely dry. There will be some rain involved. And that shows us how the GFS is looking for Boxing Day, with an area of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. So actually Boxing Day will turn wetter across many parts of the country. That low pressure then clears away on Friday the 27th of December. Heights begin to rise on the backside of that low pressure, so higher pressure begins to build. As we go into the coming weekend, this is Saturday 28th of December, this area of high pressure then is taking over the weather. Initially it'll be quite cold under that high, and we'll probably have night frost on Saturday, but you notice these southwesterlies are beginning to push up across Ireland and Western Scotland, a sign of things to come. As we go through to Sunday the 29th and then on into Monday the 30th, then we're into this very mild southwesterly push, and the air is originating from the Azores, so that's why the temperatures really lift up towards the end of the year. We could well be seeing temperatures into the teens Celsius by the early part of next week. That's New Year's Eve. Looking a bit wet and windy for Scotland. Still mainly dry and very mild down across England and Wales, though. New Year's Day actually finds us in a rather cooler, fresher northwesterly. Temperatures probably returning closer to average. Then by day 10, which is the 2nd of January, high pressure begins to reassert from the southwest. In the more extended range, it starts to turn increasingly stormy to the north of us. So the polar vortex begins to really ramp up through the first week of January. That's where we've got these pink and purple colours just here. So maybe turning stormy through the first week of January, particularly for Scotland, could be severe gales and further bouts of rain driving in with those strong westerly winds. Looking very, very zonal there as we end the GFS run on Wednesday, the 8th of January. Everything is driving in off the Atlantic. The GEM looks like that. Low pressure coming in on Boxing Day, clearing away from the east on Friday. Then as going to the coming weekend, heights rise to the south. We start to drag up these much milder southwesterly winds. Very mild potential on Monday the 30th. This could be the peak of the temperatures. Monday the 30th could go really, really mild, especially so in the south and the east of the country. Up to New Year, that's how we're looking. So a little bit cooler and fresher for New Year's Day. Winds in from the northwest then. Probably only seeing temperatures returning close to average, though. By day 10, again, we're having another push of very mild winds from the southwest. Everything driving in from west to east there. ECM, again, the low pressure's out to west on Boxing Day. Particularly for northern western areas, turns quite wet on Boxing Day. And we start to drag up these much milder southwesterly winds too by Friday into the weekend. High pressure builds to the south-southeast, low pressure's out to the northwest. We've got this long fetch southwesterly wind pumping up the air from the Azores, so temperatures really lifting up, probably into teens Celsius. As I say, wouldn't be too surprised to see 13, 14, 15 degrees with these southwesterly winds early next week. Monday, 30th of December, is probably the peak of temperatures. When we could see, as I say, temperatures into mid-teens. Into New Year's Eve, just going a bit cooler and fresher as winds swing into the northwest. New Year's Day sees high pressure reasserting itself from the southwest. That's a big area of high pressure, 1,045 millibars. And that high pressure is still dominating at day 10, which is Thursday, the 2nd of January, dry and very mild, potentially there. Excuse me, these are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which gets us to the 2nd of January. We have 17 members of the ECM ensembles. This is from the Icelandic Met Office, by the way. 17 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure just to our southwest, and we're bringing in the winds from kind of like a west-northwesterly direction. Includes the operational run, so mainly dry up to day 10 with that. And temperatures probably close to average. 17 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure over France. That's bringing in a mild or very mild west to southwesterly. 10 with high pressure just that little bit further north. Notice red colours just that little bit further north and west means we may have a rather cooler or even colder easterly type influence there. That'll probably be bringing in winds off the continent. A little bit colder. There's only 10 of those doing that. And then 7 have low pressure out to the northwest of Scotland. It's a little bit more unsettled and relatively mild with those two. These ensembles generally favouring quite mild conditions up to the 2nd of January, I think, with that minority cold option. In 2 weeks' time, these options that we've got, this is the 7th of January, all change with these 25, including the ECM control run, looking very unsettled now. Deep low pressure with these blue colours over top of the country, and the jet stream is lining up northwest to southeast as well, so that's going to be very, very unsettled with those. 15 with low pressure up to the north and high pressure to the south. That's going to be a continuation of really mild weather. And 11, only 11, that have high pressure sort of centred over Scandinavia and trying to drag in a colder east or northeast wind. There's a chance it might go colder through the first week of January, but I think overall probably mild through that first week of January, starting dry, and I would suspect in the end turning a little bit more unsettled again, possibly even a bit stormy. Finally, the CFS V2, so these are 500 millibar hikes broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 23rd to the 29th of December. You remember yesterday when we looked at this, the CFS was hinting at quite a cold first half to January, but I thought it was probably going to be an outlier. And we quickly go back to business as usual. Let's see what it's showing today. So for week 1, the 23rd to 29th of December, it does have some blocking to the north, but it has this ridge over and to the south and southwest of the country as well. That means we are settling down, we're turning drier, but we're also very mild as winds pump in from the southwest. Week 2 is the 30th of December to the 5th of January, with low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south and southwest. Perhaps going a bit more unsettled for northern parts of the country anyway, winds turning into the west. Week 3 looks genuinely more unsettled. This is the 6th to the 12th of January. Low pressure deepening around Greenland and Iceland. High pressure pulling into the middle of the Atlantic. Lining up the jet stream northwest to southeast. Could be a bit on the cool side, but the main thing is that it's turning much more unsettled again there. And not particularly cold. No northern blocking signal. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 13th to the 19th of January. We're maintaining mild weather, so the CFS has gone back to normal today after hinting at a cold first half of January yesterday. And I did say it's likely to be an outlier. Today it's business as usual. We're back in business with the westerlies and the mild conditions, although it does have a blocking feature up to the north of Scandinavia by week 4 around Svalbard. Got some blocking up there which would attempt to get the wind in from the east, but for us actually it looks like everything is still driving in from the Atlantic with high pressure through the Azores, low pressure around Greenland and Iceland, and driving in those westerly winds. So I think it looks like the trend forward is that up to New Year we're going to turn very mild and also going to be relatively dry as well. As we go through the first week or so of January, I suspect we start very mild and reasonably dry, and we probably go more unsettled again. May even turn a bit stormy through that first week of January, and beyond that we just have to wait and see where things are going. There's no sign at the moment of anything particularly cold, and I suspect if we are going to start setting up a cold pattern, it will probably have to, someone will probably have to force the issue, really, because I think at the moment the default setup is very much for this winter bringing the winds in from the west and to be quite mild. So something like a sudden stratospheric warming will probably have to happen to force the issue and to create the block, because I don't think it's going to develop organically. It will need something like a sudden stratospheric warming to happen to really shift the pattern. So more runs needed, and of course we'll bring you up to date in the next few days. And next week's 10-day video update will be on Boxing Day. Tomorrow, as usual, on Christmas Eve, we're going to do a weekend forecast. Then Christmas Day, we've got the historic weather video looking at winter of 1939-1940. I've already recorded it, and I can say it's a very, very interesting watch. Right, that's all for now though, and thanks for watching.